What's up, y'all? How you doing? Welcome to the channel and welcome to the debut episode of Gear for Dummies. Now, this is a series I plan to do. It's going to encompass a lot of different videos. I got one coming up on chest rigs. Today it's going to be on plate carriers. Got another one coming up on battle belts, armor, types of body armor, what should you get, what shouldn't you get, how to set up your rifle, your pistol, medical. It's going to be a lot of good stuff coming up, folks. Now, don't be put off by the title, because remember those books you used to see in like the bookstores or the gas station or like down the Dollar General or something? It's like Plumbing for Dummies, Electricity for Dummies, whatever for dummies. You know, those books that took a relatively complicated subject, like kit, like gear, like how to set up your stuff, which I see a lot of people struggle with, and they kind of not really dumbed it down, but simplified it to the point that your average Joe could understand it. That's exactly what I'm going for with this series. I see so many people online, in person, in classes, airsoft, what have you, that really have their heart in the right place. They want to get out there, rock and roll. They want the kit. They want the guns. They want to get into that prepared citizen mindset. But despite their best efforts, it's just not there. Well, I'm doing my small part to help out. So of course I did what any red-blooded American these days does. I started a YouTube channel. Now, of course, you're probably watching this on YouTube, maybe Instagram. I'll also be on Rumble before long. And I really hope you can see something you like. Feel free to like and comment and say something down below. Tell me what I'm doing right. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Hell, insult me to my face. I really don't care. Anyway, moving on. Plate carriers. This is probably the most often requested item that I hear people ask about when they're taking a class, when I'm teaching a class, if I'm just sitting in on a class, if I'm at the airsoft range, whatever. Everybody wants plate carriers. Everybody wants this before any other piece of kit. Now, without getting too far into the weeds, I'm not forgotten weapons, I'm not forgotten history or whatever. I'm just going to do a quick summary on the history of plate carriers and why the average citizen, in my opinion, should always have one. Now, plate carriers came about sometime probably in the mid-80s. Now, body armor, especially ballistic armor, is not a new thing by any stretch of the imagination. People have been using body armor for warfare going back to classical times. I'm talking ancient Rome, ancient Greece, the earliest texts that we have, and from the Hittites and the Egyptians. People were making armor out of bones, out of boar's tusks even, so it's not a new idea by any stretch. Now, the idea of modern ballistic body armor, though, really goes back to the late 70s, early 80s, as I said. If you watch the show Narcos, you'll see a couple guys run around with these really funny-looking vests, and there's always that little square right in the middle. That was one of the first plate carriers. Now, it didn't have MOLLE, didn't have any webbing, didn't have any way to attach magazines or anything like that to it, but it was a step in the right direction. Now, it wouldn't be until probably the late 90s, early 2000s that you really saw these things getting into the mainstream, really saw them getting in the hands of special forces, even line infantry. Look at Black Hawk Down, they had a rudimentary version of this, although special forces had, of course, the better stuff. And really going into global war on terror era, it really got out there. Everybody had to have body armor. That's when the U.S. Army adopted it, the Marine Corps, the Brits were using it, even some foreign nations started adopting it. These days it's everywhere. In fact, I see a lot of people online talking about places like India or China especially, Russia with the whole Ukraine thing going on right now. They're really astonished that more of their soldiers don't have body armor. It's almost like not having night vision. In fact, it's worse than having no night vision, because if you don't have body armor, well, it's simple. Your troops are going to die. And the biggest thing this adds to a battlefield situation or prepared citizen situation, survivability. Now, a plate carrier is exactly what the name implies. It's a piece of fabric, or it's a garment of some kind that carries plates. Plates, of course, being little bits of steel, polymer, or ceramic that fit inside this carrier and will provide ballistic protection against most modern ammunition. Now, in here I have level 3 plus steel plates. In my other plate carrier I'm going to pick up here in a second, the one I normally carry, it actually has polyethylene plates in it. Those are way lighter, but offer the same protection as these steel plates, but they're a lot more expensive. We'll touch on that a little more later. Now, again, without going too far into the weeds, there are three kinds of body armor that you can put into these plate carriers. There are steel plates, ceramic plates, and synthetic or polyethylene plates. Steel is going to be the cheapest and most common. It's also the heaviest. Steel can take multiple hits, even in the same spot on your plate, and usually it provides relatively good protection, especially if you have a good spall coating on your plate. Spall is how can I put it? Spall is the bullet destroying itself as it hits that piece of steel that's hanging over your chest. See, when a bullet hits you straight on like so, that bullet is not just going to bounce off unless it's hitting you at an angle or catches the curve of the plate. If it is a direct hit to your plate, Just look at any video where a guy is shooting steel targets out down range, or you can go out and do it yourself, whatever the case may be. When that bullet hits a solid object like steel, it is going to obliterate itself and pieces are going to fly in every direction. That's called spall. Now the spall coating on an average steel plate will usually absorb that, or at least mitigate it a little bit, because you really don't want sharp pieces of metal flying up at, oh, I don't know, your jugular, your carotid, if you have your weapon up like so. Pretty important veins and arteries running through here, so not a good day. It's also really heavy. That's why it's important to pick a really good quality plate carrier before you go out and buy your plates. Because really, if you're going to spend the money on anything, buy a cheap carrier but really, really good plates. So that's definitely where you want to spend your money, folks. Because a carrier, I mean, you can switch that out later on down the road. This is one of the first carriers I ever bought. I really don't even use it anymore. I decked it out just for this video. Normally I just use this as a weight vest when I go out to the gym, so upgrades are available. But the plates, the actual armor, that's where you want to spend your money. Go out and really save up for that. The polyethylene plates I have in my other carrier down here, they're $250 a piece. Steel is about 50 or 60 bucks a piece, maybe more with inflation right now. There's also ceramic. Ceramic is kind of on par with steel, but it's not quite as tough. It's a little lighter, but can't take as much punishment. But again, try not to get too far into the weeds on that. Now, going back to actual plate carriers. Aside from just carrying your plates, you really want to have some kind of capability for mounting accessories. Now here I've got basically your most basic bare bones plate carrier setup. This is a Condor Sentry. Again, it's the first plate carrier I ever bought. And it doesn't have a whole lot of real estate to work with, but it's enough to get you to where you need to go just to start off. Now let's say this is just something you keep by your nightstand, keep in the closet, maybe in the vehicle, which is where this one used to live, or maybe this could be your potential rock and roll in case of zombies, zombies rising from the grave, Russians falling from the sky, what have you situation, which is okay, not the ideal situation, but it'll get you there. Now as you see, the front of this plate doesn't have a whole lot of real estate to work with when it comes to magazines. Most plate carriers on the market will only have space for 3 magazines up front. And as you can see, I've got a Condor triple mag pouch up here. There's lots of companies out there, guys. There's 501 companies out there making pouches of every description. I mean, they got mag pouches, tourniquet pouches, pistol mag pouches. There's HSGI, there's 511, Condor, Haley Strategic, infinite numbers of companies, and I highly suggest that you do your research before going out and buying anything. Now, a cheap carrier like this will run you about 40 or 50 bucks, but really, if you're going to get a good quality carrier, like say a combat quality carrier, you're going to spend about 200 bucks. That's the minimum that I would suggest spending on a plate carrier. Again, this is the first one I bought back when I was poor, and this is all you can afford, guys. Please go out and get it. You got to start somewhere, and I'd rather you have something than nothing. Now, the biggest drawback I have, or I see personally in this carrier, is no cummerbund. Now, this can be a good or a bad thing. This is what you call a low visibility setup. This is very low profile. As you can see, the back panel is slick. Normally I would have hydration or at least a med pack back there. The front, all I've got is these 3 mags. They don't stick out very far. If I really wanted to, I could actually throw a coat over this, maybe a heavy sweater or a hoodie. I could throw a backpack on over the back of this. Nobody would be the wiser. And that would be ideal if you're, say, in an urban environment and some bad situation comes to pass. Like, again, zombies rising from the grave, Russians falling from the sky, or if you really want to get crazy with it, I'm talking really out there. Let's say a mob of people in black hoodies with torches are just running around, torching every building they see and looting every store they can find, and just randomly killing people for no reason. I know, kind of out there, would never really happen, but it's an idea. Could happen. You never know. So this would be the most bare bones, as I said, most basic setup you can have. It's just 2 plates, a carrier, 3 mags, maybe some patches, you're good to go. Again, not a lot to work with here. Most plate carriers will have a cummerbund that goes along the side. As you can see, this has just this little strap, which is a good and a bad thing. For a low-vis carrier, maybe, again, a vehicle setup, active shooter response, this is good for donning and doffing really quickly. Now, I mentioned just now the words donning and doffing. You'll see these words anytime a plate carrier is described on any big website. People get a little confused when they talk about this. Donning and doffing, basically it's putting on and taking off. When you don the plate carrier, you're putting it on. When you're doffing the plate carrier, you're taking it off. See, right now, I just unhooked those two buckles. I can swing this over my head, throw it over my back, take it off, put it to the side, whatever. It's off me. Now, why would you want to be able to do that quickly? Well, let's say the armor did its job, but not quite well enough, or maybe even a little too well. Let's say I took one right on the edge of the plate, but then it bounced up and went through my clavicle. Or maybe I got shot from the side. I'm hitting the side. Maybe I'm not hit on the armor, but I'm otherwise wounded, and now my buddies have to drag me off the battlefield, but this stuff is too heavy. So maybe they need to get this off me. Or I'm in the water. Steel plates sink, guys. I mean, it's dead weight. This is 8 pounds per plate of dead weight, so, and if you get level 4s, they're even heavier. So 16 to 20 pounds of dead weight right there before you stack anything else on top of that. And so, if for whatever reason you have to get this thing off quickly, you want to have some capability of doffing this rather quick. And also putting it on. Let's say this is your car gear. Like as I said before, this used to live in my car. And you're off doing your daily shopping, you're off at Walmart, you're off at Whole Foods, you're at your kid's baseball game, whatever. All of a sudden, pop, 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 Mr. Bad Guy is going crazy inside, or maybe down the street, something bad is going down. You want to be able to get your stuff and rock and roll, save the day. Now, yes, I know, a little out there, but it does happen, and it has happened. So you want something that you can just grab, throw over your head, snap it on, grab your rifle, you're good to go, because everything you need is already on your carrier, ideally speaking. Now again, this is a pretty simple setup. This is just 3 mags, a couple of morale patches, not really a place you can mount a tourniquet. I used to have one on the front of one of these pouches, and that could work. Maybe you could stick a medical kit up here, and you could even stack mag carriers if you want. And they got a little 5.11 mag carrier here. You can even stack it on the front of this, or you can get one of those double deckers that holds 6 magazines. I don't really like those personally, because when you load them up, for one thing, they're heavy. And that makes you front heavy out the wazoo. You're doing this all the time. If you ever have to drop down to the ground and go prone, they really get in the way. You can't get down low enough, because guys, you can never get low enough when bullets are flying. So, I mean, not saying don't do it, y'all do you, but I wouldn't advise it. Now, some things that you can mount to the front, as I said, could be medical pouch, like this 5.11 pouch. I had this riding here for a while, but as I said before, kind of sticks out, a little more high visibility. I like to stick them on the back personally, because if I'm actually going to use this, it's probably going to be from one of my buddies, or I'm probably helping somebody on the ground who really needs the care, and in which case I will take this off. But that's another thing you need to think about, where to put your medical, because your medical should always be on your kit, your plate carrier, your chest rig, your tactical vest, what have you, because 3 things that good gear should always do. This is one of those adages that you really need to think about anytime you're setting up any kind of kit, be it, again, plate carrier, chest rig, tactical vest, battle belt, whatever. It should be able to make holes, plug holes, and stop holes. Now, making holes is obvious. You want your ammo. You want to be able to have enough ammo on you to be at least sustainable in a relatively short gunfight. Although, according to a lot of combat studies, you'd be surprised how much ammo people burn through in a gunfight. I think I read somewhere that the average military loadout of 6 magazines plus 1 on the rifle, this was 7 mags total, will last you about 2.5 minutes in a serious firefight in a military situation. Now, for concerned citizen, where we're just going out, this is riding in the back of the vehicle, just in case of Mr. Bad Guy, active shooter, again, zombies and Russians or what have you, maybe we won't need that much ammo, but it's always nice to have. As I believe the great James Yeager once said, nobody ever goes into a gunfight saying, why, oh, why did I bring all this ammo? And that's probably another thing to touch on. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but really you have to find that happy medium, because you want to have all the ammo you can possibly have, but at the same time not enough to where it overburdens you, or you just have a ridiculous amount, like, again, 6 mags on the front, maybe a couple more mags on your cummerbund. I've seen guys have horizontal mag pouches on their back of their carrier. I usually keep 2 on my battle belt, which I'm not wearing right now, but my stuff is usually configured to work with the battle belt. So you want enough to make you effective, but not so much that you're overburdened. Another thing to think about is you don't always have to have everything on your kit. I can have 3 mags on my kit, 1 or 2 on my belt, 1 in my rifle, and maybe I've got a backpack with 4 or 5 more mags in there, which is usually what I've got. So I can have more magazines at the ready, just not all on me. But anyway, moving on. So, make holes, plug holes, medical, again. Now this one is empty, but this is a 511 medical pouch. Has these handy dandy pockets. They zip open, zip close. Now usually I keep gauze, Israeli bandage, muslin bandage. I keep some hemostatic in here, either some quick clot, some C-locks. They make quick clot infused bandages, which are actually a lot better than loose powder. Something that you can pour into a wound to make that blood stop. Something you can pack on there, stop the bleeding as quick as you can. Chest seals are a good thing to have. I always keep a spare tourniquet in here, even though I have usually one on my carrier, one on my belt. And if I'm going into a situation where I know I'm going to be fired at, I'll try to keep one or two in my pockets or whatever. I've always heard rule of thumb is one tourniquet per extremity, so at least one for each arm and one for each leg. And also remember, they're not all for you. If you're planning for the day that you need to actually put this stuff on, go out and pull triggers, and go do work for real, just remember one thing, guys, and this could actually apply to your EDC too, your everyday carry, not just when you have your plate carrier or whatever with you. If you can shoot the bad guys can shoot you. They can also shoot other people. If this is a mass shooter, or even sometimes, heaven forbid, a home invasion situation, or if it's even, let's say, a riot like we had during the Summer of Love back in 2020. If you're pulling security on some property like I did a couple times, and things really, really went sideways and bad things happened where people were actually hurt, the medical stuff you have on you, that could be the only thing these people have. I mean, yeah, you got on the phone, you called the ambulance, EMTs are on their way, but if you're out in the boonies like I am, EMTs are on their way, but they're 45 minutes away. Something's got to be done in the meantime. You're the one standing there when stuff goes down. I don't want to get too far away with my language because, you know, YouTube. But yeah, you're the one standing there when it all hits the fan. You can call whoever you want, but you're the one that's standing there, so you have to be prepared to deal with that situation when it comes. So again, make holes, plug holes, and of course, stop holes. I already touched on body armor. Now, another thing I see people do wrong all the time, it's probably the biggest mistake I see with people who are wearing body armor. They're wearing it wrong. Because, let's just face it, the movies, the TV, even some of the games that you see, they get this stuff wrong all the time, and I'm pretty sure they do it on purpose sometimes. Because, so you see where my armor is sitting right now. This is not exactly perfect. Let me try to line it up a little bit. But if you put your finger over the top of your armor plate, you want it to hit just the bottom of your sternal notch. That's that little V that comes down from your neck and joins your sternum. The top of your plate should sit just about even with the bottom of your sternal notch. And if you put your hand over your back and run your finger down the back of your neck, you should reach a hump down there between your shoulder blades. Your back plate should sit about even with that. So my back plate's hanging a little low right now. But people like to wear this stuff too loose or too low. You'll see plates sagging down to here sometimes, and you're just defeating the whole purpose of having body armor. Because the whole point of carriers being designed the way they are is that this plate is covering my vital organs. And this plate is covering my heart, my lungs, my diaphragm, and maybe my upper intestines. These are medium-sized plates. You can get large plates that are a lot bigger. I don't like them because they restrict your movement and it makes it hard to shoulder the rifle. And plus they're just heavier and they're more cumbersome. Yes, there's the extra area of protection that you get, but it's a trade-off. You really have to weigh the pros and cons anytime you're buying body armor. And also it depends on your body type. I'm a big guy. So medium is almost too small for me. I just like this size because it protects what it needs to protect without being too much in the way. But I could probably get away with a large size plate. Now some of the guys I train with, they're a lot shorter than me. They're a lot skinnier than me. Somebody like Lucas Bodkin from T-Rex Arms. Guy's a stick. I mean, he doesn't need very much body armor. For one thing, he's a tiny target. Nobody'd ever hit him anyway. But I digress. So you want your body armor to sit just about here. You want it covering the center of your chest, vital organs, so that way if you are taking fire directly, the bullets hopefully will hit your plate, and if you're lucky, won't do any damage to you. Now, another thing to remember, boys and girls, and any variations thereof, armor doesn't make you invincible. Does not make you invulnerable. As you can see, the armor is covering my vital areas. My arms are wide open. My legs are wide open. My sternum is wide open. Or not sternum, but my pelvis is wide open, rather. And, of course, there's that old joke, what if he shot you in the face? Now, they make armor I can put on my shoulders. They make armor I can put on my shins. Or not my shins, but my thighs. They even make little dangler plates that'll cover your your private bits. I'll just put it that way. Although I really wouldn't want to take a bullet in that because, ow. But they have yet to make a device that you can actually wear on your face that stops rifle bullets that won't kill you in the process. I think the Russians made a steel ballistic mask that does cover your face and it's supposed to stop rifle rounds. I think Garantham did a ballistic test on this and he shot the thing with a rifle round. Yeah, it stopped the bullet. It smashed the guy's face in the process and he's probably dead anyway, but hey, it stopped the bullet, right? So again, it's a compromise, it's pros and cons, but it's been shown time and time again in all the wars and all the engagements since body armor has really been introduced to the modern battlefield that troops wearing body armor have a much, much higher rate of survivability than troops who were not wearing it. In fact, look no further than the conflict that's going on right now in Ukraine. A lot of the reports I'm seeing is that your basic Russian infantryman isn't wearing body armor most of the time. Now, your average Ukrainian infantryman or special forces operator is wearing body armor. So when these two come head to head and they start shooting at each other outside of all the armor and the tanks and the planes and all that, but actual firefights, mano a mano within intermediate and close range distance, Ukrainians are just wiping the wood with the Russians because the Russians are taking far more casualties. Ukrainians have much more survivable wounds because they're wearing body armor. Because when those rounds hit where otherwise would be an instant kill, guys, you take a 7.62 or a 2.23 round through your heart, it's pretty much lights out. If you're lucky, if you are lucky, you've got about 30 seconds to 2 minutes before, you die, and you can possibly get around in the guy that killed you. But if you're not wearing body armor, if you were just running around, say, with a battle belt or a chest rig, and that bullet to the heart, it will kill you. If you're wearing body armor, you've got a much greater chance of surviving that. Now, that being said, it all depends on what kind of armor you're wearing. We'll get into that in a different video because there are different levels of body armor. Like there's 3A, basically Kevlar body armor that stops pistol rounds, 3 or 3A, which will stop 5.56 or 7.62 rounds, up to level 4 that'll stop much heavier rifle rounds. But again, I digress. More on that to follow in a separate video. Now, I keep saying this is a very basic setup. Now, I know a lot of you guys are sitting out there thinking, now, I wouldn't wear that. I want something that's a little more, let's say, heavy duty, something with a little more capability. Well, I got y'all covered. Because normally I don't use this setup. Again, this is just a weight vest. The one I normally rock and roll with is this guy. Now this is my tried and true 511 Tac plate carrier. I've had this for years. It is a wonderful product. If you're looking for your first plate carrier, highly, highly recommend 511. In fact, just go to 511 for everything. And no, this is not a promotional spot. I have no sponsors. I do not do commercials yet. Maybe that's coming. I'm just a very, very satisfied customer when it comes to 511. I have gone through so much gear, guys. I have bought 2 or 3 different plate carriers, all kinds of Mac pouches, all kinds of cummerbunds, just a little bit of everything from every company, and I just keep going back to 511. There we go. But I just keep going back to 511 because when you're just comparing capability with affordability, they're just one of the best companies out there. So, okay, end of rant. I'm kind of gushing a little bit. Back to the plate carrier. Now, I said before that most plate carriers only have space for about 3 mags. 511s are notoriously a little larger than they need to be. They have a lot more material, which is why a lot of people don't like them. It's also actually the reason why I like them because, one, it gives me space for an extra magazine. So instead of 3 mags, I now have 4. That's not much, but in a firefight where your life is at stake, you never know when you might need that extra ammo. Plus, this has a lot more real estate to work with when it comes to adding accessories. And as you see, I have 4 elastic mag carriers here. I have my favorite morale patch. And woven into the molly over here, I actually have a small flashlight, a pin, and a marker. Now the flashlight and the pin, fairly obvious. Up here in my admin pouch, I keep a couple little items like, say, Write in the Rain notebook, maps. I think I have a thing of face paint in here, an earpiece for my radio, things of that nature. Now this, guys, a Write in the Wren notepad is one of the best investments you can make when it comes to your kit. This stuff will write literally in the rain. I've written on this thing with this pen in pouring down rain where normal paper would just disintegrate. So if you need to take down coordinates, make notes, make a grocery list, say, oh, the bad guys are here, and then take it back and give it to somebody, you can't go much better than this. And they're pretty cheap. I think I got this for like $3 or $4 at Academy. Now earlier I talked about cummerbunds. Cummerbund is this piece of material that goes under your arm and then connects the front plate or the front bag to the back bag or front plate to the back plate of the plate carrier. This is where a lot of guys like to store what I like to call secondary gear. Secondary gear is things like a knife, your radio, maybe in the little knickknacks, and then you can put extra mags over here. I like to put pistol mags over here if I'm not running a battle belt. And things that are not your primary, meaning stuff you don't need immediately, like say a rifle mag or a flashlight, but a secondary item that you will probably need down the road, but you don't need it right now, right then. For example, over on this side I actually have a knife, which is from Gerber, awesome company by the way, and I also have my radio, which is a Kenwood and a 511 radio pouch back here. Quick thing to note when it comes to your radios. I have mine back here. Notice how it's not all the way on the back of my plate carrier. I see a lot of guys doing that. That is a bad idea. Well, hang on, I'll back up on that a little bit. It's a bad idea unless you're working with a buddy. Because if you're working by yourself, you don't want your radio on the back of your plate carrier where it's impossible for you to just grab and open up and get into the frequencies and such. Because if you're in an actual situation where you're going to be running and gunning and actually using that radio to communicate in a tactical manner, you really want the capability to be able to switch between frequencies, switch between channels, even switch between users. Sometimes you may even have to switch radios, because movies, again, they lie. Also, they focus usually on law enforcement and military subjects, where everything is encrypted. You can talk pretty much openly and nobody knows what you're saying. Us average citizens don't have that luxury. So if you're in a situation, again, zombies from the grave, Russians falling from the sky, anybody can hear what you're talking about over any open frequency, especially if it's ham or FMRS or something like that. So you want your radio to be in a position where it's out of the way, as mine is, but also where if I really needed to, I can still get to it. I can just pop this little tab, flip that tab up, it's got a bungee retention. I can pull this out of the pouch, get it up here, type in what I need to, change whatever I need to, pop it back in, no problems. And I've also got my push to talk right up here. And again, I do have an earpiece which can connect to this. I also have a little wire that will let me connect this to, say, some ballistic earmuffs or a headset or something like that. Now those are really cool, but I like just having the little PTT right here, because it's kind of like when you see cops wearing these over their shoulder. And I can just say, hey 1-2, hey 1-2, I need help. Bad guys are over here, please send help. That, and also when whoever I'm talking to responds, it's right here in my ear. I can hear it loud and clear, unless I'm wearing earmuffs or earplugs. But even with earmuffs, I have the electronic ones where I can crank it up and I can still hear clear as day. So that's really, really handy. And also there's no wires to really mess with. The wires that I have here, and it has one wire that goes to it. I've got it feeding through my shoulder pad, down the molly in the back. Now that's another thing to think about for plate carriers. There's a thing called wire management, and it is one of the biggest pains in the butt when it comes to orienting your gear. I hate wires. I hate them. Wires are the devil, Baba Boucher. They are the devil. Because they get in the way. If you have wires all over the front of your carrier, like you have one of those military-style PTTs, if you got a headset and all this fancy comms gear, wires get snagged in everything, guys. I mean, if you have any kind of wire on the front of this carrier and I go to grab a magazine, yeah, right there, that little swipe of me pulling this mag out of this pouch, if I clip that wire or I get it tangled and it slows me down, one, I might die. Two, my reload's going to slow down. And three, if I just broke that wire, well, now I got no comms, now I can't talk to anybody. And if you're trying to shoulder your weapon, let's say you have your weapon slung across the front of your chest like I usually do and I'm wearing this kit, if that gets snagged on the wire, well, same issue. You could cut your own comms. And you can mess up your wiring, you can mess up your radio, you can mess up all this expensive stuff that you put all this money into. I hate wires. This is where rubber bands are a lifesaver, because you can loop a rubber band through this molly. Here I've got molly webbing, some of this is laser cut, and we'll have a video on that, how to weave or interlace stuff through molly. But that's another thing to touch on, is wire management. It's another reason I have my radio where it is, because from here I actually have that wire woven through the molly on my cummerbund. It's going up the back panel, across my back, under my shoulder pad, which most shoulder pads have some kind of thing where you can manage your wires. These actually have Velcro flaps that'll flop over one way or the other. You can put your wires through there. Sometimes they'll have little loops on there. I believe the Condor has that. And also, this is a good place to put your hydration straw. Like, let's say you have a water bladder on your back and you have the straw coming over your shoulder. Great attachment, by the way. People often forget. I don't know how many air softers I have seen go down with dehydration because they have no water. Guys, you burn calories when you run. You get dehydrated if it's a hot day and you're running and gunning out in the woods, or especially out in the desert. Any of my veterans will tell you about this. You get dehydrated. You got to keep your muscles in the limber. You got to keep your muscles from cramping up on you. Maybe throw some Gatorade or something in there. Throw some hydration tablets with the sodium and stuff in there. You need to keep yourself going. I see so many guys all the time, whether it's airsoft or a tactical class or whatever, they have all this cool stuff, no water, no snacks, no jerky, no protein bars, nothing to actually keep yourself going. Because another thing, guys, quick thing to touch on, this stuff weighs a ton. Each one of these loaded mags, loaded to the brim with 30 rounds, weighs about a pound. Not much. I mean, lifting it right now, it's nothing. I can carry this all day. 4 of these is 4 pounds. 2 more of those on the belt, 6 pounds. Let's say I put more on the cummerbunds. It's a pound each. The plates I'm wearing right now, the polyethylenes, are 3.5 pounds each. 7 pounds. Now if I had steels in here like I used to, that's 16 pounds. So just the front and back plate plus 4 mags, that's 20 pounds of dead weight, guys. Not counting everything else that you put on here. Not counting the radio, not counting the knife, not counting the rifle, not counting the water, not counting anything that's in a pack that you might be wearing, any other gear that you want to throw on here, because this is by no means an exhaustive list of what you could put on a plate carrier. This is just my personal setup. It adds up really quick, and as a wise man once said, ounces make pounds, pounds make pain. And take it from me, I've had to run around with this stuff all day long in the Missouri heat, out in the woods, up and down hills, across creeks, over rocks, everything. It's a lot of pain. And you will go down with heat exhaustion. It's happened to me several times. Don't be that guy. So yeah, wire management, straw management, really look into a plate carrier's capabilities on that. Another thing to look at when choosing a plate carrier, as you can see, the straps on this one come inwards and they leave most of my shoulders exposed. This is awesome because when I go to shoulder my rifle, I can fit the stock right into my actual shoulder pocket. It's not sitting on top of my armor. It's a big problem I had with the Condor and with a lot of other carriers where the straps just come straight down. Now these big thick shoulder straps, guys, they will mess with your cheek weld. Unless you've got your rifle set up like your stock fitted to just that right point and you've trained with it like this, you can rest it on top of your armor. A lot of guys that I know that have served in the military, they learned to do this out of necessity because just those big fat strips, or straps rather, went down their chest, over their shoulders. There was no way around it. Your rifle was going to sit on your armor. And some carriers, like a Cry JPC, I think Warrior Assault Systems has another one where it has those flat Hypalon shoulder straps. Those are awesome. Those do not interfere with your shoulder weld at all, or cheek weld, or your shoulder placement at all. So that's another thing to look at when you're looking or trying to choose a plate carrier. Let's see, what else have I not touched on? Oh, donning and doffing again. Now earlier you saw me using the buckles on the Condor. That's pretty simple. That's one of the few things I like about the Condor, but most plate carriers can't do that. Most plate carriers have one of 2 methods of donning and doffing. That is, you have your cummerbund. In this case, I have modified mine to have First Spear quick detach tubes. Now, as the name suggests, these were first pioneered by a company called First Spear, which is in St. Louis, by the way. They make the ones for the Navy SEALs, so go Missouri. And it came out, I want to say, probably 5 or 6 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But these are awesome because they have this little pull tab here, and they make it so all I have to do is yank this little cord, pops right off. I can yank these. The front panel is clear. I can toss this over my head, or my buddy can do it rather. I'm out of this thing in 2 seconds flat, so now I can be treated. I can be pulled to the back. I can bring myself out of the water. Whatever I need to do, whatever reason I had to need to get rid of this armor really, really quick, I can do it. Now, the other method of doing donning and doffing with most plate carriers on the market is actually the way these are attached to the plate carrier. You can get this hooked up back here. You just slide them in like so. If it'll work with me here. Oh heck, I'll deal with that later. The other way of doing this is that most plate carriers actually have a flap on the front of the plate carrier. What you would do is you pull that up, because there's Velcro or hook and loop underneath here. You pull that up, and you pull the other side out like so. You'll have Velcro, hook and loop, whatever you want to call it, on the inside of this piece of the cummerbund, because normally these first spear tubes wouldn't be here. In order to put this on and take this off, you lift that flap, stick it under there like so, drop it. Now it's stuck together, it's really in there, it's not coming out, guys. Now this can wear out over time as this plate carrier is done. I'm actually looking to replace this pretty soon, because I've had it for a few years, I've used it hard, it's at the end of its service life. And so just be aware of that. Now those are the two main ways of donning and doffing plate carriers that do not have the buckle system. Now there's a lot of options out there for aftermarket cummerbunds, and some of the best ones out there come from Haley Strategic. Let's see, Faro Concepts makes a great one, HSGI makes a great one, 511 has some options, and you can have anything you want. You can mount everything plus the kitchen sink to these things, guys. And they're an awesome piece of kit. If you get them set up just right, they will serve you very well, and they will never let you down. But, as the great Grantham likes to say, it's not worth anything if you don't get training. If you don't get training, guys, all this stuff is useless. I mean, I can have the coolest gear. I can have a $10,000 plate carrier set up, and believe you me, they do make them, for spear once again. I can have a $10,000 Gucci gear set up. I can have the best rifle ever made. I can have the sweetest kit, the sweetest stuff ever imagined. If I don't know how to use them, and I've never gone on trained with them, I'm useless. I'm just a prize pony for anybody out there looking to squeeze off one shot, drop one enemy, and have a seriously sweet payday when it comes to loot. I would be a loot dropping fool in that scenario. So I highly suggest, folks, that after you get this stuff, after you orient your gear, and it will take you a while to orient your gear. I have gone through so many iterations of this. This is like my sixth or seventh setup, probably. At least 4 or 5 times going through mag carrier setups. It took me a while to figure out how to weave this stuff into the molly where it wasn't falling all over the place. I've gone through 3 or 4 cummerbunds. You are going to change things. You're not going to get it perfect on your first try unless you're really, really lucky or really, really rich. And again, once you do get this set up just the way you want it, just the way that works, get out there and train with it. Whether you go to a full-blown tactical school, like say Tactical Response, Asymmetric Solutions, Cogworks, anything like that, or just go out in the woods and LARP with your buddies. Play some airsoft. Take it out to the paintball range if you don't mind getting it dirty. Do something to where you are moving, shooting, and communicating with this gear. This gear specifically. No, well, I shouldn't say this gear specifically, but your gear. Whatever setup you are planning to wear when it all hits the fan, when the end of days comes, when the zombies are rising from the grave and Russians are falling from the sky. Because if you don't know how to use it, it's useless. And with that in mind, folks, and y'all take care, and stay frosty, my friends.